Hi, all of you wonderful scuba divers out there. Welcome to the Scuba Diver Magazine podcast, where I break down the latest scuba diving news and things that have piqued my interest over the previous week. This week, breaking news of a boat fire in Indonesia. A new blue hole in Mexico is believed to be the deepest in the world. A UK coroner records the first IPO verdict on a snorkeler. And the Tobago House of Assembly rather quickly withdrew a $10,000 reward for the capture of a bull shark after massive backlash online. So yeah, the first news story is literally breaking as of 20 minutes ago for me, where the Sea Safari Liveaboard is on fire in Indonesia. That is literally as much of the information that I have as of right now. I see a photograph of a clearly established fire on board. Apparently the picture comes from a friend whose buddy was on board. Those are all of the details that I have right now. It's hard to tell exactly which one because there are 3 Sea Safari vessels out and they all look quite similar. There's Sea Safari 6, 7 and 8. It's hard to tell with the smoke exactly which one it is. We've reached out to the tour operator for a statement, and any updates will be on scubadivermag.com. That's all that I really have right now as of 20 minutes after finding out. The world's deepest blue hole is now known to be one discovered 3 years ago off Mexico, and it turns out not only to be even deeper than originally thought, but its bottom is yet to be found. A series of scuba dives were carried out at the top of the massive Tamja blue hole last December to determine the prevailing environmental conditions for a new study by Mexico's National Council of Science and Technology. The sinkhole lies in the Chetumal Bay Manatee Sanctuary in the middle of the Chetumal Bay of the south coast of the Yucatan Peninsula in the Caribbean Sea. The scientific divers initially checked out factors such as visibility, the substrate characteristics, and wall coverage in the blue hole down to a depth of 30 meters. Echo sounders from the boat indicated that the hole was more than 250 meters deep, but because producing meaningful echo sounding results in that kind of environment, because it's such a small hole, just a shaft that goes straight down, there's lots of bouncing off the walls. It gets complicated. A conductivity temperature depth profiler was then lowered. Even using 500 meters of cable, the team were unable to reach the bottom of the blue hole with the instruments because of concerns for its safety. However, they can now say for certain that the blue hole extends at least 420 meters below sea level, which is 146 meters deeper than had been initially estimated when it was discovered back in 2021. The profiler also revealed multiple distinct layers of water within the hole. The deepest layer reached, the top of which lay at around 400 meters, displayed a temperature and salinity similar to that found in the Caribbean and nearby reef lagoons and estuaries. This has led scientists to suggest that the blue hole is connected to the ocean not only at its entrance on the surface, but via a hidden cave network at depth. The sinkhole that had previously been regarded as the world's deepest, which is the Sancha Yongle blue hole, or the Dragon Hole near the Paracel Islands in the South China Sea, is only 301 meters. So this one just blows it out of the water, I suppose, and is clearly a new world's deepest. So blue holes, as far as scientists understand, they're caused by the collapse of soluble areas of bedrock, such as limestone or gypsum in coastal regions, and it's a very localized area, so everything just kind of collapses in on itself, and they provide a very unique diving environment. They're obviously quite dangerous as well. The blue hole in Dahab is well known to be, not dangerous in itself. The actual area itself is relatively fine, but it's that kind of enticement of, you can go a little bit deeper. Of course you can go a little bit deeper. That leads some divers to get themselves into literal deep waters and deep trouble. So it's important to do things properly and use these kind of remote probes to find out. But yeah, the fact that they haven't found the exactly how deep it is kind of spooky. Back to the Red Sea, the loss of a British man in February has now been attributed at an inquest to immersion pulmonary edema. Les Finch, who was 72 and a retired engineer from Lancashire, was an experienced snorkeler who died whilst exploring an Egyptian Red Sea reef off a beach on the 27th of February. He was found face down but unresponsive in the sea at the Three Pools site of Dahab, where he had been snorkeling with his wife Martha and a friend. It had been the 5th day of their holiday in Egypt. Emergency services were called whilst divers at the scene tried to resuscitate Finch. Whilst paramedics arrived, he was pronounced dead. During the inquest, Dr. Brian Rogers, who's a scuba diver and snorkeler himself, said, quote, he would have felt shortness of breath, but that would have been very rapid, and he would then have lost consciousness. The Home Office pathologist said that a coughing fit suffered by Finch the previous day whilst out swimming and attributed by him at the time to a recent cold would have been a preliminary sign of IPO or immersion pulmonary edema. Later examination of Finch's body in the United Kingdom had proved challenging because it had been embalmed whilst in Egypt, ruling out blood analysis. A CT scan had revealed signs of heart disease, but it was determined that this was not linked to his death and had not caused the immersion pulmonary edema. However, senior coroner Dr. James Adderley said that high blood pressure and high cholesterol had been contributory factors in Finch's death. Adelaide mentioned that despite his long experience as a coroner, this had been the first time he had recorded IPO as the cause of death in a drowning incident. Quoting, "In all other cases, it's when someone has inhaled water into their lungs." Finch had been, quote, surrounded by lots of people and no one noticed him in distress and his mask and snorkel were still in place, said the coroner. He hadn't had sufficient time to raise the alarm. So one thing that they're hoping to do is raise awareness for immersion pulmonary edema and to sort of just mainly pay attention to very subtle signs and symptoms where, if you don't feel right, it's best just to get out of the water. I know you're on holiday, I know you're there to go snorkeling or scuba diving, but actually it's better just to stay as safe as possible and to just read up on some of the signs and symptoms of IPO and just make sure that you're staying safe in the water. The next news story is about a British tourist who is in intensive care following a serious encounter with a shark in shallow waters at Turtle Beach in Tobago, has brought further unwelcome publicity for one of the Caribbean's prime scuba diving destinations following the oil spill that was designated a national emergency in early February. The oil spill resulted in the temporary closure of 7 miles of coastline in the southwest of the islands, but had not affected any dive sites, whereas the shark incident had caused a temporary closure of some 10 beaches further to the west, where a number of the island's most popular dive sites are located. Peter Smith, who's 64 from Berkhamsted in Hertfordshire, was being treated in Scarborough General Hospital's intensive care unit for serious injuries to his left hand and forearm, as well as to his left thigh and stomach. He was described as being in critical but stable condition. Smith had been on holiday with his wife and friends in the Starfish Hotel on Turtle Beach in Great Cortland Bay and was due to fly home later that day on the 26th of April. He was in waist-high water, only about 10 metres off of the resort beach when the incident occurred at about 9:15 a.m. Very few people had been around at the time, but other bathers helped Smith by getting him ashore, applying tourniquets and raising the alarm, whilst others reportedly tried to fend off the shark. According to eyewitnesses, at one point the animal had temporarily beached itself before being drawn back into the sea by the tide. The shark was also reported to have injured another bather, though wounds to his stomach were reported to have been limited to scratches. The Coast Guard began monitoring the area, and the Tobago House of Assembly initially offered a $10,000 cash reward for any fishing crew that caught what was described as a bull shark. This offer was later withdrawn after critics had claimed that a bounty would serve only to promote a killing spree on the part of those just seeking the reward. Because, of course, how many sharks are going to be caught just because, well, yeah, everyone just wants $10,000. If you own a fishing vessel, then yeah, you're going to catch anything and everything. And even if it isn't the right shark, it's too late by then. You've already caught it and killed it. Tobago has not previously been associated with bull sharks or shark attacks, though one non-fatal incident in 2004 had been attributed to the species. The recent incident coincided with excavation of a nearby turtle nesting site, with local commenters suggesting that there might be a connection. If there's lots of baby sea turtles and whatnot being excavated and going into the waters, then that might be why the bull shark was more likely to take a chance in shallower waters. Reported sightings of the shark later that day at Baku no man's land and Grafton led to temporary closure of the Baku Reef Marine Park to all recreational activities, including scuba diving and snorkeling. Warnings were issued about entering the sea in the vicinity of Plymouth, Corland Bay, Black Rock, Mount Irvine, Bucko, Pigeon Point, and Store Bay. The image that they put up is just reward and a picture of a shark, calling all registered fishermen, mobilize your crew. The THA is offering a $10,000 reward for the successful capture of the shark involved in today's attack at Turtle Beach. Please exercise caution as your safety is of utmost importance. But yeah, if you're sending people out to catch sharks, then yeah, they're going to go do it for $10,000. But yeah, at least they withdrew that as soon as they could. As far as new diver equipment, I see the new SeaLife SportDiver underwater smartphone housing on Scuba.com. So this is as the name suggests, an underwater housing for a variety of smartphones. It says broad compatibility with recent iPhones and Android phones, intuitive operations, even with dive gloves. Yeah, because it's got quite a nice big like lever shutter and big like knobbly controls on top, and it says works with iPhone, Samsung Galaxy, Galaxy Pixel, and most other Android phones because it's nice, like big generic size, and the front screen where your cameras are on most phones it is decent size, so it's going to cover them. Waterproof down to 40 meters, so that's good for us scuba divers. That's recreational depths. And it also has an anti-fog and a moisture, and they call it a moisture muncher capsule that helps prevent internal fogging and just like residual moisture coming through, and a dual leak alarms. So there's an internal moisture alarm and an internal vacuum pressure alarm. So if you see any of those going off, you know to get it out of the water as soon as possible. It includes a free SportDiver app. Unlike other smartphone housing apps, they say there are no annoying in-app purchases or ads. You can easily switch between photo and video mode. The SportDiver app uses your phone's camera technology to native to each phone model. The app supports the present and previous versions of OS. The app is updated according to the new versions of OS and all that kind of stuff. And it connects to the phone on the inside via wireless technology, so no cables or buttons to actually touch the phone whilst it's in the case. It's all done through like buttons, and they Bluetooth to the phone that's in the case. And we're seeing more and more of these. There was the one from Oceanic and Apple. They created one for their for the iPhones that like doubles up as a dive computer in some instances, or at least it'll talk to your Apple Watch Ultra. But yeah, it makes sense. Because yeah, you can like invest in an underwater camera and the housing and all that kind of stuff. But if you already have the phone, and cameras on phones are pretty darn good nowadays, as long as you have a decent underwater housing for it, then yeah, it kind of makes sense. It's probably going to end up on your phone anyway, so you can upload it to social media. So why not cut out the middleman? But yeah, definitely worth checking out. I'll pop a link down in the description below, so you can head over and check out more about it. Right now, it's got a recommended retail price of $349. I'm not sure what that's in the UK or like Europe prices. Yeah, so if you're in the market for a new underwater camera, maybe worth checking out. That was about it as far as diving news. Oh no, tell a lie. There's a documentary coming up, which is really interesting. Diving into the Darkness. It's basically a documentary all about Jill Heinarth and all of her cave diving experiences. Incredible visuals and everything. From their website, Canadian explorer and storyteller Jill Heinarth is one of the world's greatest living cave divers, fueled by an insatiable curiosity to explore the unknown veins of Mother Earth. Jill has been involved in the most legendary and demanding cave diving expeditions of all time, from surveying the world's longest caves in Mexico to discovering giant iceberg caves in Antarctica. Yeah, I was listening to one of her audiobooks a couple years back, and yeah, some of the stories about diving in like ice caves and things, and it is just incredible stories. And this documentary is already winning awards. It's got the Santa Barbara International Film Festival Best Documentary Feature winner, official selection for Documentaries Without Borders International Film Festival, the official selection, the Endless Summer and Dana Point Film Festival 2024, and the 2024 Mendocino Film Festival official selection. Lots of beautiful visuals of underwater cave systems and just information about Jill Heinarth in general. So yeah, if you head over to divingintothedarkness.com or search their handle on pretty much any social media at Diving Into the Darkness on like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all that kind of stuff. It's definitely worth following them. At the moment, it's just the trailer out. I'm not entirely sure if there is an actual release date, but I think it's this summer. But yeah, Diving Into the Darkness, just check it out. So on to some Ask Mark questions from the previous week. The first one, GMAC44. Hi, Mark, another. I've not witnessed but heard of divers using inverted twins with a non-isolator valve manifold and longer second stage hoses. I dive with vertical 300 bar twins with a non-isolator valve manifold. I'm considering side mounted, but switching tanks to maintain buoyancy is an added task. Versus non-switching with twins. What are the pros and cons of using inverted twins? I'd prefer to consider an experienced pre-dive answer than have a bottom time issue. Please continue. So inverting cylinders. There are pros and cons to inverting cylinders, where you literally have the valve down, like in the small of your back or on your butt. The main benefit is like valve access, especially if you struggle with shoulder mobility. My shoulders at times don't like reaching like behind your shoulder blades. So being able to just reach down and kind of behind your back, it's a lot easier to find those valves and manipulate them when they're inverted. So that's the main benefit of them. The downsides, however, are that one, when you're getting kitted up and getting de-kitted and all that kind of stuff, if you're just standing your cylinders up, it's going to be standing on the valve, or more realistically, it's going to be standing on your regulators, which is obviously a bad thing. So then you need to fit a cage, which just like attaches to the like neck of the cylinder where the valve attaches, and then you have this metal cage that just goes over your regulators and the cylinder valve itself, so you can then stand it up. So now your cylinders are a few inches taller, which makes them, just a little bit bigger, but also means that the bottom of the cylinder is close to the back of your head. When you invert cylinders as well, the center of buoyancy, the trim, is going to like shift further forwards over your shoulders, so it can be a bit more like shoulder down position, so your feet are always up in the air. So you've got the big like bottom of the cylinder clonking against the back of your head and shoulders being pushed down, which is why a lot of divers, if they are inverting, they'll use short cylinders. We often call them dumpy cylinders here in the UK. So you can get like a dumpy 12, which is the width of a 15-litre cylinder, but it's the length of a 10-litre. That way you're getting the volume of a 12, but in the length of a 10-litre, so you don't get that effect like quite as much. As you alluded to in the question, you need new hose lengths, because instead of like for your BCD hose, the hose just comes over your shoulder and down to your inflator. Now it has to come all the way up your back and then over your shoulder and back down. The same with your backup hose and all that kind of stuff. For your alternate hoses, just generally need to be like longer, or in the case of your high pressure gauge hose, a little bit shorter. But yeah, mainly it comes down to like access to the valves, so you can reach them a little bit easier. But on the flip side of it, yeah, it kind of throws your center of buoyancy out, and you need to like amend your regulators and the top of the cylinder valve. So there's pros and cons. I have known divers to dive them, and they're perfectly happy with it. A lot of rebreather divers as well, but they don't typically have like multiple hoses coming out of it. They just feed the rebreather, but they still have access to the valves much more like conveniently. But yeah, it's not overly popular unless you do have like shoulder mobility issues. Trying to work out this name. Preface Bastian, 8921. Sharks and Yum Yum Yellow. What are your thoughts? I have seen like anecdotal evidence that that sharks are attracted to the color yellow, but it's more like circumstantial and in comparison to other colors. They like that like high contrast, and it kind of catches their eyes. But anything like white and glinting, like if you have a metal watch strap or jewelry, especially, if they kind of see that, it looks a bit like fish scales to them, so it kind of catches their eye. But yeah, the color yellow, yeah, the one that, or the evidence that comes to mind was they had several different colored buoys floating on the surface, and they found that sharks would like go for the brighter colors. I think it was the white and the yellow more frequently compared to like blues and reds and all that the other colors, just because it contrasted more with the blue water. So I think there is something in there. However, a shark is not like, well, it's not even like a red flag to a bull. They're not going to just see yellow and just like unrelenting rage just go straight for it and attack it. I don't think bulls even do that. I think bulls are colorblind. I think it's more just the matador waving a cape and stabbing him. That's what they go for. But yeah, sharks, I think I must have worn something yellow or brightly coloured around sharks, and they don't make a beeline for you. It's a safe colour. However, you just need to be aware that yeah, they are going to go for things that that glitter, and yeah, just sort of pay attention in the water, basically. Carl Fleming, 2171 says, haven't dived in 20 years, just getting back into it. I'm starting to notice that I'm not 20 anymore. Oh yeah, tell me about it, brother. Do you know any good stretches or exercises that would help with mobility, particularly focused on scuba, such as shutdown drills, fin removal, and the dreaded dropping something when you're kitted up? Yeah, get someone else to do it for you. Focus on your lower back, because yeah, carrying cylinders, it does a real number on your back. You do have to be careful with that. Lift with your legs, and if in doubt, get someone else to do it. Shoulder mobility. Yeah, the one that I usually practice is if you have like a big flat wall in front of you, like push your arms straight up and then like walk into the wall. So that's just gently sort of pushes and stretches on those muscles, and then yeah, if you reach an arm straight forwards, lift it straight up, and then bend your arm so you're then touching like the back of your neck, and then just do that a few times. I'm sure there'll be like recommendations online, but yeah, I can certainly do a video on that, all the different exercises to work on it. Legs as well. You do have to do like morning stretches nowadays. Yeah, I'll come up with a list for you. Neblo72 says, I have watched a video of a buckle of sorts on the hip connection of a backplate to make it somewhat adjustable. Can't remember what they are called. If you could help me out, I would appreciate it. Yeah. So on a DIR harness, you don't want any like clips, any pinch clips or anything, or any breaks in that webbing, but that does make it very hard to get in and out of your webbing. So there are things like the first one that I heard of was the A-Gear Harper loop. So it's Alpha Golf India Romeo Hotel Alpha Romeo Papa Alpha. Sorry, I just had to go through that in my head. A-Gear Harper loop. They They do a left and a right-handed version, or they do a left-handed version and then they do like a both version. Personally, I only have it on the left-hand side because you have your D-ring on your left-hand hip, so you can't pull it through. On the right-hand side, whatever I put on my right-hand waistband isn't typically attached, whether it's like a dive knife, a retainer bar, or a battery. They don't typically attach onto the strap. So if you have one on that side, it can just pull straight through, which is kind of annoying. There have been a few imitations come out, or at least what I call imitations. There was the Mars XR SF2, which was very similar, except it wasn't like angled. The A-Gear Harper one was like bent a little bit to one side, so it didn't dig into your hips. The SF2 is a bit more straight, and I think Techline did a version as well. I can't remember what they called it, but I remember seeing that on their website a while back. And I want to say the Halcyon Cinch. Let me just look at that. Cinch. They have a cinch system on their on one of their back plates, and I think that makes it adjustable. Let me just have a quick look. Yeah, it looks like a similar thing. I don't know if it's like the entire back plate or whether it is just a little like D-ring kind of fitting that you fit to your back plate. But yeah, Halcyon Cinch seems to be a big system compared to the little like A-Gear Harper loop. But yeah, there are a few out there. The ones that I use is the A-Gear Harper one. That's my favorite, and I've used the Mars XR SF2. But yeah, they'll do the job. Victor FLALJ says, just bought the Helix Compact Pro regulator from Aqualung. Aqualung says you only have to overhaul the regulator every 2 years. If I were to hook up a regular Octo to the Compact Pro regulator, would I have to service the Octo more frequently than the primary Compact Pro? Yes. Each individual component, each stage, like first and second stages, they each have to be serviced according to their specific like guidelines. So in the user manual, it'll have a like service schedule. It's usually 1 year or 100 dives, whichever comes first. Or if you use it like professionally, usually like every 6 months. It depends on like the amount of use the regulator gets. If it's used a lot, then it needs to be serviced more frequently. If it's put in a cupboard for like more than 6 months, then yeah, it needs to be serviced more frequently. But yeah, you can't just take any second stage and fit it to like an Atomic T3 that has a 3-year service interval and like ignore the Octo for 3 years. All you have to do is really to bring your regulator in and just say, oh hey, don't need these serviced. All I need is the Octo serviced, and they'll do that. They'll pull the Octo apart. They'll replace the parts, clean it up, and rebalance it for you. But yeah, you do need to get it serviced once a year if that's the service schedule. Epi Kahu says, has anyone seen a button SPG cover or protector that could be removed only in case the second stage pressure needs to be checked or when the transmitter fails and an analog SPG is needed? Just a little something to give protection for the glass, or do I have to buy a 3D printer to overcome the problem? Yeah, 3D printers seem to be like fixing a lot of these issues nowadays. So you want a little cage or a protector for a button gauge? I don't think I've ever seen an official one. Most divers consider button gauges kind of disposable, really. But you can get like rubber hose caps, like the ones that you get on over the threads of diving hoses. Those kind of like red, like soft squidgy rubber things. I imagine you can get them in different sizes. Just find one that's like large enough to fit over your button gauge. That's what I would use, because yeah, one of my button gauges is chipped and broken. I don't use that anymore. That's kind of the best that I can recommend. Yeah, maybe a 3D printer would be able to create something. They're doing a lot of very clever stuff nowadays with 3D printers. But yeah, I'd have a look at that, or like heat shrink collars or tape. I use it a lot for a few things, and it's mainly made for like electrical stuff. So you can slip it over, and then when you heat it up, it contracts. So maybe that's something that you can do over a button gauge, and then you have like a custom thing. But I don't think I've ever seen any like official button, because they come in different sizes and shapes and designs. And that's it for another week. So thank you very much for listening. Remember to head over to scuba.com for your new scuba diving purchase. They also do some travel stuff, which is I'm going to get into in greater depth, as well as diving into the darkness.com, the documentary. Have a look at the trailer. Definitely worth watching, and yeah, and worth a follow for when it's finally released. Head over to our website, scubadivermag.com. Do all that good social media stuff, like, share, subscribe, and hopefully we'll have some more news on the Liveaboard fire in Indonesia. Hopefully everybody got off all right. But more information will be on scubadivermag.com. Anyway, thank you for listening, everybody, and of course, safe diving.